Welcome to the Startup Support Surgery podcast, where we light the entrepreneurial spark in medics and healthcare professionals. Join me, Dr. Joe Watkins, GP, business coach and co-founder of The How People, on a journey to discover where your medical know-how meets the business world. This will help you find some clarity on how to balance work, passions and family so that you can gain more freedom and control over your life, but also continue to help people, which is actually why most of us went into medicine to start with. Embarking on this entrepreneurial adventure is not easy. It is a roller coaster of emotions, but it's hugely rewarding and exciting in the process. Drawing on my 20 years of blending medicine and business as a GP, I am here to share experiences, insights and lessons. Expect lively chats, expert interviews and real-life stories from medics who have taken their own path. Let's break free from traditional healthcare norms and explore more innovative ways of making a real difference to people's health and well-being, along with paving the way for a brighter future for us as healthcare professionals. Oh, don't miss my free PDF called From Stethoscope to Startup, which is an 11-page guide in the show notes full of practical help and advice. This is your roadmap to kickstarting your journey with us. Enjoy the show. Welcome to today's podcast, which is very excitingly number 30, podcast number 30. I said to myself in September when I started out that I was going to do 30 podcasts in the next academic year. And so this is the end. This is it. It is all wrapped up. Or is it? That is the question. I've had lots of lovely emails, lots of lovely comments, lots of lovely feedback about this podcast. And I know that there are people out there that look forward to listening to it every Monday morning, which is just madness. But I'm really delighted with how it's gone. We've had some amazing guests, amazing case studies, amazing experts, and I use it all the time now in helping me signpost people that are struggling at different aspects of business and being able to signpost them to somebody who either knows what they're talking about or is very relatable in that space. So it has been an absolute joy and a pleasure. Every single one of them I have loved doing. But the good news is that it will be back. The third season of the podcast will return. I think what I am going to do is do 2 new episodes a month, and then I'm going to do a deeper dive into one of the previous episodes on social media in the kind of week in between. So there'll be 2 new episodes a month, and then there'll be signposting because there's so much goodness in there, and actually re-listening to these podcasts is really important as well. So don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. It'll be taking a break for a couple of weeks over Easter, and then we'll be back in May with more brilliant interviews. And I am excited to finish with this one because he is a lovely chap and I think you will get an awful lot from this episode. So today I'm chatting with Dr. Dave Hindmarsh. He is a portfolio GP at Eaglescliffe Medical Practice in Stockton in the Northeast. He's also got lots of other hats. He's an Associate Director of Medical Education, all sorts of things, but he has also got a small and growing YouTube channel. He has previously run GP templates. He's going to talk about this a lot in the podcast. He's done all sorts of things within the tech world, within general practice. He's a clinical lead in his area as well, and has taken on the role of clinical digital lead for the GP Federation up in Hartlepool and Stockton. Dave loves to explore the role of social media within the primary care space to see how it can be used to improve patient care. He's previously an army medic, as you will hear, and he has a family, a wife and 3 children who he loves spending time with, and his dog, and he's got a train set in the attic. He's one of those guys, Dave, has got a train set in the attic. As we will discuss, he has a lot of fingers in a lot of pies. There's lots of exciting stuff in the pipeline. So our random fact about Dave is not only does he have a train set in his attic, but I have to choose this one because of an obvious reason, but your grandmother went to Liverpool University and qualified in 1948. And that was why you chose Liverpool on your record form. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah. So, and she was Dr. Lovely as well. So, and
Dr. Lovely.
She was Dr. Lovely as well. Absolutely fantastic. So she was from Barmouth, so another Welsh connection for you. So her dad was a pharmacist. We're talking 40s. He basically, she went, oh, I want to be a pharmacist. And he went, no, go away and do medicine. And then studied in Liverpool. I've got her graduation photo just behind where my patients sit in my consultation room. So I sort of like, if I'm stuck or thinking, what would Grandma Lovely say? And yeah, she would sort of point me in the right direction from that way. She had, I wish she was still alive. She had a fantastic career. So she ended up, because Liverpool being a big naval dockyard, she ended up joining the Merchant Navy as the ship's doctor, sailed the world, has got some fantastic stories and photos, and then ended up in Harwich, so down in Essex, as their local doctor, married the ship's captain. He ended up being the harbour pilot, and that was, back sort of the 50s, 60s, and set up family planning clinic, this, that, and the other. And it was just like, phenomenal woman. And you sort of get this idea of like, well, this very stereotypical, no, they were sort of locked away somewhere. It's like, no, she was out and about doing everything. It was brilliant.
Yeah, she was nailing it.
Yeah. So
amazing. She sounds like one of these ladies that needs to be in that. I'm reading Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls at the moment with my 9-year-old. She sounds like the kind of woman that needs to be in that.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely that.
Amazing. And Liverpool was one of the things that brought us together. We can talk a little bit about that. But I'm a passionate ex-Liverpool University, and my reason for going there was slightly more vacuous in that I was a big Liverpool fan. I still am a big Liverpool fan, but back in the day I was a huge Liverpool fan, so it was just the only option for me. So yeah, why don't we go into that? How did we meet? How did that all come about? And I literally could talk to you for hours, so I want to make sure we get all the stuff out.
Absolutely. So I think it was it was via LinkedIn, wasn't it? I've fallen in love with LinkedIn over the past 6 months or so.
Yeah.
But I'd sort of, obviously with what I do in terms of the YouTube channel, I try and push it through quite a few of the social media platforms. I try, Facebook, I've got a couple of really good groups that I'd interact with and they're really useful. Was on X for a while, and then it got all a bit nasty. And I think for my own sanity, I had to step away. And then a couple of people said, oh, I got a LinkedIn account. I think like with a lot of doctors, we've got one and we sort of put a family photo up. We don't really invest in it. And then I just had a meeting earlier today as someone turned around and said like, it's where all the grown-ups hang out. And it was one of the ones where you see like-minded individuals post about stuff, be open and sharing about what they're doing, thinking, hang on a second, there's some excellent people out there. And then I think you'd popped up as, we're both Liverpool graduates, and I went, I'll give you an ad. And then I'd sort of fallen into your LinkedIn automation, like, Dave, have you heard my podcast? Dave, have you heard my podcast? And then it was one that went, Dave, I think you'd really like this podcast. Listen to this first episode. And I was like, oh, for heaven's sake, right. I ignored the previous messages, listened to the first podcast, and fell in love. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to sort of push it out there and say like, I get this personality. I was like, I really like you. I can see what you're going. I was doing a couple of courses, so I had a couple of long drives away. And I think you got, at the time, it was towards the end of series 1 where you sort of like, where I picked you up. And I just binged it. Absolutely binged the other episodes. Like, yes, I get you. And then I think we'd sort of tried to then, I sort of messaged for your half an hour free chat, which that was back in November, which, trying not to blow smoke anywhere, but has completely revolutionized how I think, how I sort of like, how I sort of marketed myself. And as of this morning, I just checked, due to your advice, I was like, you looked at what I'd done on the content. You went, Dave, you're pushing out educational content. Why aren't you selling of this as an online course? I went, well, I can't do that. And you're like, yes, you can. Get rid of some of that. Put it on Kajabi, see what you do. And I was like, oh, right, okay. Left it a month and, got Christmas out of the way with 3 young kids, and got to January and thought, oh, what would Joe do? Joe would get a Kajabi, subscription. So I thought, right, take a deep breath, quieten down the inner chimp, and then bought a annual subscription on the very Billy Basic package that gives you 1 course. That was back in January. I thought, right, what would Joe say? She would say, set yourself a stupid target and see if you can hit it. And I was like, right, the AKT, which was part of one of the general practitioners in training, one of their key exams, the course that I was delivering targeted that exam specifically. There's a sitting in April. end of April. So I was like, right, what's reasonable? Well, if I get it done by the end of May, then that should give, whoever's going to buy it, give them a month to sort of do my content, which would put them in a really good position. So I was like, right, you've got till the end of March, Dave. And as we're recording, that we are at the end of March, and it was released 2 days ago. And I've got 3 sales, and I am so happy. It is unbelievable. It is just like, yes. I was on the dog walk last night. It was released so we're filming this on a Monday. I released it on Saturday late at night. I'd got some pre-contacts, thanks to Kajabi, that it allows you to do a pre-sign up sheet, and I hadn't really publicized it, but sort of pushed it out to my known contacts. It had grown naturally to about 11 people. And Kajabi allows you to then automatically send them an email saying, hi, the course is now ready and available. Would you like to sign up? 3 people as of today, and I was like, yes, so pleased. Sorry, there we go.
I was like air punching. So yes, excited. That is amazing. That feeling of like, this was a thing in my head. This is now a thing in real life, and somebody else wants this thing. I mean, there is just nothing better.
For me, it was because we had our chat and you're like, Dave, this is what you should do. And you think, okay, yeah, I should do it. And then the bit for me was the pre-sign up. When I got 4 people signing up saying, yes, I want to do a course, I was like, because regardless of what I've pushed out, I still have that negative voice, as I think everyone does, that says it's not good enough. No one wants your thing. You're stupid. And it's the same rhetoric. Yeah. Whereas actually you need to find, and I know there's an internal safety mechanism trying to keep you in the group and whatnot, but it's that so reassuring to have someone going like, no, I want this, like what you're offering I do actually want. And then now to actually then follow through with physical cash going like, yeah, I want it, I'll pay for it. Yeah. It's just next
amazing.
level.
Absolutely love it. And just in that little beginning bit, there's so much there that I want to pick out. And then I want to make sure that we've established exactly what you are doing. So the couple of things I want to pick out first is LinkedIn. You're right. And I remember now, because you came into my world through my automation pathway, which is the only ads that I'm running at the moment. So I'm not doing meta ads at the moment. For anyone that's in this world already and listening, I'm not running any meta ads, but I have got a reach out campaign on LinkedIn that I've done with Charlotte Moldari, who is in episode 18. So if you're interested in how that works, she is the person to talk to about that. And yes, you get a series of, if you fall into this group of people that I can talk to or that might need my help, you get these irritating emails from me until you either tell me to go away or you just ignore it. And you are probably my biggest, just having you in my world as a result of that automation process is enough, to be honest. I'm just delighted to have come across you and be able to share what you do and be able to work with you. It's just an absolute honor. I want to talk about your inner chimp, but before we get lost, can you just tell us in your own words what you do and who you help? Because you are, I think, a bit of a social media darling. You have YouTube channels, all sorts going on. So for somebody just listening who hasn't heard of you before, what do you do that you love the most at the moment, and what's this course about, and maybe what are the plans for you? That's
absolutely. So we'll go all the way back. So I'm Dr. Dave Hindmarsh. I am a portfolio GP, though I'm not a particular fan of the term portfolio. I much prefer the term patchwork, because it's sort of everything sort of blends into each other, and we can talk about sort of different bits and pieces. So predominantly I'm a GP partner, so I work 6 sessions at Eaglescliffe Medical Practice, so that's up in the northeast. I'm then an associate director for primary care medical education with Hartlepool Medical School, and then I run a small but growing channel, GP Templates, but there may be a name change coming, and hopefully we'll get to talk about that, because that's really exciting. And I'm also part of our local federation because of, and this is another interesting point, because of the work on the channel, I'm now the digital clinical lead for our federation. So, which is just sort of showing the impact that it's had to me, where people have gone, oh yeah, I see you've done this video on this subject. Are you interested in doing this project or this sort of bit? And I'm like, absolutely. Yeah. It's been fantastic. So GP Templates was created, crumbs, about 8 years ago now. And I'm not going to lie, I've been off and on with it. I'm not regularly posting originally. I was one of those annoying GP registrars working on SystmOne, which is one of the electronic healthcare records. I'd created a couple of data entry templates, which I thought were pretty nifty, and thought, let's try and sell them. Created a small YouTube channel that sort of said, like, effectively as trying to advertise them and seeing what could happen off the back of it. Very, very young and arrogant, and basically hadn't even thought about that this was a medical device that I was trying to sell, and hadn't even gone through those processes. But what was interesting, that even though the videos were fairly niche in terms of what I was doing, I had a locum agency saying, I can see you're on SystmOne, you've done some recordings. Any chance you could do us an how-to guide on how to set our consultation, how to do a prescription, how to do this? And I went, I tried to charge them initially, sort of like what I now realize was probably a reasonable rate, but I didn't have the sort of the subscribers or the backup to really follow through with it. Gave them a quote. They said, no, that's too much. And I thought, hang on a second, I'll just do them and see what happens. And that really, those initial core videos then not exploded the channel, but started to get that growth of it. So I was a military doctor, so was signed up in the army following university. So effectively there was a pause where sort of the military's on a very different electronic healthcare record. I put the channel to one side and sort of had it left there, but it just grated in the back of my mind. And as I was sort of leaving the army, I thought, wouldn't mind trying to pick this up and seeing what I can do with it. And then, because I'm one of those, I'm sat on YouTube far too much, and you watch a lot of good content, but on the reverse, you watch a lot of really poor content. And I don't know, again, probably that inner voice going, you can do this, Dave. You could probably do it a bit better. Why don't we give it a go and see what happens? And then it's just been, and then in the past year, trying to help my trainees. So I'm a GP trainer as well. I've got 2 international medical graduates who both were sitting the written exam needed to pass their GP training. So the AKT, Applied Knowledge Test. They were phenomenal, the pair of them, in the clinical stuff. Didn't bother them whatsoever. They could rung rings about me in terms of clinical management. What they really struggled with is the medical statistics and the administration sides of how the NHS runs, all these sort of backroom stuff, what a partnership is, et cetera, that I nerded out hard over, like absolutely nerded out hard. And at the time, the local training scheme wanted the trainers to come and deliver sessions. So I delivered a stat session saying, if you sit in your AKT, this is what it was. So a 2-3 hour lecture, which I got a slide deck for. And then the same for the administration, delivered it a couple of times. And I thought, hang on a second, why don't I just snippet this down into 10-minute videos and then just chuck them up and see what happens? Some of them hits, some of them not so big hits. And then you came along, Joe, and said, you're an idiot. Put those behind a paywall and charge. And guess what? You were right. So yeah. So
this course is just for that. What have you called it? 20%?
So it's called the stats and the admin accounts for 20% of the AKT. So I've called it the other 20%. So you've got the clinical bit and you've got the other 20%. So at the moment, depending on when this goes out, we've got the April pass package or April smash package, because I'm not going to guarantee a pass, which basically is you've got 16 dedicated modules, 10 on the statistics, 6 on the admin, with a couple of intro ones just with me giving my thoughts, which is a video with a whole load of waffly text as well. So if, say, you're in a middle clinic and you can't afford to have a video, you can just read it. Over 100 questions dedicated to that area as well, so that hopefully you can just almost like maximize your revision in those areas, so then you can spend the rest of your time doing clinical, which is such a huge topic, and anything could pop up. It just hopefully just maximize your time with it. So yeah, I've got a April package for £30, and then sort of like then offering a 1 month, 3 month, and 6 month sort of package, depending on how you revise and how much time you've left, basically. So
Great.
yes,
and this is just like music to my ears, because this, as anybody who's listening who has been unfortunate enough to have a one-to-one with me and has come to me with the idea that they can help anyone with everything, and I'm afraid I am not, I'm a bit of a bubble burster when it comes to this. I just need to clarify, this is a course for people for GP registrars doing an exam, but it's not about the exam, it's about 20% of the exam, and that's it. So
absolutely, yeah.
the vast majority of humans on the planet don't want to buy this, and that's the best thing about it. So it is super specific. And Dave is now honing down and concentrating on finding, and will now be, I'm sure, and we won't be able to go into this in huge detail, but I know that you will be thinking, right, how do I get this course in front of the right group of people? And that's how something works. The online world is super noisy. There's a course for everything. There's somebody, an expert in everything. You want to find the person that can give you the result you want. These people want to pass and they're struggling with that 20%. This course will help them. Correct?
Exactly that. Exactly that. I was having a chat with someone at the weekend, and basically we sussed out there are about 4,500 GPs per year, as in training. That's my target audience. Like in the grand scheme of things, that's tiny, but actually I know exactly who to target. I've because of contacts through social media, I'm now on a GP trainers course, and I sort of turned around and said, look, I'm making this course. If I'm more than happy to come and present, if I offered you a discount code, could you then publicize it? And they're like, absolutely. And in fairness, this was about a month or so ago, the course creator or supervisor, Dr. Tara George, well worth checking out her stuff, Bedside Reading podcast. She messaged me and said, like, Dave, are you still doing your course? Can we, when's it ready, basically? So I was just like, yes, and just that, again, that external, like, oh, people do want this.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely. People want what you are offering. And I think as medics, sometimes we sit there thinking, well, who's going to want this? And the answer is one specific group of people.
Yeah.
I cannot, stress this enough. I love it. Absolutely. Now, you've touched on, we know it's not all unicorns and roses. And, I am super excited that you've had these bookings. I know that I'm going to get this out as quickly as possible so that you can get more in April. And this will continue. So if you're not listening to this in April or May 2025, just look up Dave and you will find this information. You mentioned you're in a chimp, and you mentioned, I don't know what you call the other one that tells you that you can do things. Let's talk about that a little bit. Like, you're a very confident guy, you're very extrovert, you're out there. You surely don't have these moments of thinking you're not good enough.
Oh, get them all the time, just all the time. So if anyone who's, I love the Chimp Paradox as a book. It has genuinely changed my life. I think it's like, I don't mean to put it on a pedestal. And I did a book review on it, and actually had a really good conversation with someone who was like, oh yeah, and who also got it, was on YouTube. And it's one of the books that I prescribe as a doctor. I've had quite a few patients who say, like, I'm just dealing with this. Certainly when I was in the military, I said, like, your chimp's all out of whack, mate. Go and read the book and, go and sort yourself out. So probably technically speaking, it's your inner chimp is basically trying to, if you rewind back to caveman era, it's trying to keep you within the tribe. So what it hates is when you stick your head above the parapet, because it thinks you're putting yourself out there, you're putting it at risk of the tribe. So it's sort of like, it will scream internally for you to toe the party line, keep going, keep quiet, just contribute, and then sort of take it from there. What the Chimp Paradox does is it then gives you a couple of ways to then recognize when the chimp is taking effect, and also then sort of either negotiate with it or other bits and pieces, or sort of gamify it a bit. So I use a couple of tactics. First one is exercise. So I will always, and I got into the habit, and my wife is, it's her fault. So we've got a jokey called the Hindmarsh Running Club. I even got some sports tops made up for it, where we've got 3 kids, 7, 4, and 2. It is very stressful in the mornings. Life is a lot easier once we've both been out for a 2-mile run. That's it. And we'll both be up and be like, whose turn is it to run first? We've got the dog, got retired greyhound who's quicker than us. Take the dog out for a walk. First one goes out, then the second one goes out. Then we're like, actually, by the time the second person comes back, guess what? The kids are dressed, or getting dressed, fed, and then we're off, good to go with the day. So that calms the chimp down, the exercise. Make sure you get your exercise in at some point. At least if it's in the morning, it's done. You don't have to worry about it for the rest of the day. I'm on an Apple Watch. My rings look amazing. Sorry. Second bit is negotiation with it. And you've got to suss out what your chimp is, what drives and motivates your chimp. Now, I'm, even though there's a podcast, I'm a rather rotund gentleman. So guess what? My chimp's motivated by food. So I'll be like, right, something sweet, I'll motivate you that way. Though I'm trying to detrain the chimp for that way. But you can negotiate with the chimp to be like, I know you're feeling this way, and I recognize it, that you're feeling a bit nervous and whatnot, but can we just try? because what's the worst that actually happens? So, for example, like with the Kajabi and the course, the worst that happens is that I've spent quite a bit of money. That's one thing. It doesn't want to lose money. It wants to spend it on the kids. That's understandable, chimp. Second part is time. Like, we've plowed in a lot of time into this. What's the worst that happens, chimp? Okay, the worst that happens is that someone complains and someone, say, sues you. That's like the extreme arc. Okay, how likely is that? So you sort of gamify it. How likely? Well, actually, it's not that likely. Okay, fine. So what's the next worst thing that happens? No one engages. Okay, so they're the worst things that happen, chimp. And he goes, okay, right, fine. Well, how about we just put it out there? If it doesn't work in a month, 2 months, then we'll just leave it alone. You're right. We'll let you win.
Yeah.
And then actually I've used that metric time and time again, video content creation, we'll be like, we'll just put this out there. We'll see what happens. Okay. What's the worst that happens? Fine. And then actually soon. And if you, the thing is though, and the only difference is the repetition. So if you do it enough, you can, when you come up with these ideas, so I think in the book they refer to it as like the computer or the more human element of it. When you come up with these ideas, so for your new business and whatnot, your chimp isn't automatically shouting at you that you're stupid and you're wrong. It's a bit like you can just turn around and say, look, can we just do this something small, see what happens? If it doesn't work, that's fine. We'll leave it alone. But if it does work, you can be quiet and go back in your cage for a bit.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's how I...
And I have read it, but not long enough, not recent enough to remember any of that. So thank you for that summary, because there's something here about when that inner chimp is happening. I find if that is also then closely followed by somebody within your close friendship group, your family, your partners, reiterating the noises of the inner chimp in a kind of like, well, what would you be doing that for? Like, surely that's not the right thing to be doing. That can lead down a pretty difficult path, can't it? That, it's
Absolutely.
a firm belief. Is that a thing?
Yeah, completely. And I think with, you'll hear a lot of, certainly with like content creation, it does, and I use that in the broadest stroke in terms of like whether even if it's you're putting a post on LinkedIn, so something fairly banal, like the percentage of people putting stuff out on LinkedIn is tiny, and you can manipulate that with effectively, sort of changing your environment with who you surround yourselves with. Okay, so who do you follow on LinkedIn, for example? Who do you follow on Facebook? What podcasts are you listening to? And if you surround that sort of the white space and that empty noise with podcasts of, so I'll listen to yours, Joe, on, I had it on the drive in this morning on a Monday morning. It's been like, so you're hearing these other people doing stuff. So you're like, when that reinforces your being able to negotiate with the chimp, like, well, Joe's doing this. Joe said this. Like, she knows what she's on about, because actually we followed Joe's advice before, Mr. Chimp, and she was right. So can we do it again? And he's like, okay, begrudgingly.
Yeah, it is definitely. And this really reminds me of the time leading up to us going away for the year with the children. We sort of had this crazy idea, started dipping on. It's a bit like when you get a dog or anything, you dip your toes into this world that you didn't know existed prior to it. And, we started reading about world schooling and homeschooling and the education system. And the big thing for me was listening to Ken Robinson's podcast, TED Talk, not podcast, TED Talk, about schools killing creativity. As soon as I heard that, I was like, oh, okay, I've been thinking this subconsciously for quite some time. And it started us surrounding ourselves by listening to different people. And that was able to balance out the vast majority of people in our lives that were like, you're going to do what? I'm sorry. And what happens if the children lose their place in school? What happens if somebody gets hurt? What happens if? And it was able to counteract. And because we felt so strongly about what we were hearing, it was balancing out the negative. And in the end, you just don't hear it anymore. So, by the end of homeschooling a child till he was 10, if somebody at Tesco said to me, is he off because he's unwell? And I'd be like, no, he's homeschooled. And then I'd just walk out the door because I just didn't hear anymore.
You're just like, meh, it's fine. And you're at the point you've had so much positive.
Yeah.
You've got so much experience that initial step is the hardest, but it does get easier.
Yeah.
You can just like,
absolutely.
yep, done. Absolutely done.
So I'm hearing a guy that has got like oodles of energy, like massive loads of ideas, loads of different things going on with young children. You're
Yep.
also you've also
Yep.
got lots of stuff. Like, at what point did life at what point did you see life becoming like this rather than just kind of sticking to a regular GP job? Or you said you were in the army. Like, how?
Yeah, so I joined the army, leaving university. One that I've got family members in, always thought would be quite cool. My wife was also military, so wife was Royal Navy. So we met at university. She went off to join the Navy, had an amazing time. It's and sort of, when I say sailed the world, literally sailed the world. Got some brilliant stories, far better than mine. Whereas I sort of ended up in some, if you ever wonder where the army trains, and I was like, oh, you've been out to Canada, that must be great. It was like, no, it was in a desolate area that they're happy to roll tanks over. So it wasn't the greatest place. Likewise with Kenya, admittedly that was on a national park, so we've got some odd photos of me in military uniform with a giraffe in the background, and then it's sort of like, well, this is weird. Anyway, so did that, always thought, and the military's very good in terms of, and I think that's where you see where doctors, certainly in the NHS, get burnt out, because they're very good at giving you a target, giving you the next thing to work on, giving you a reward in terms of whether that be a medal, a new rank, regular appraisals, which are very well structured and give you a sort of like right, this is what you need to do to get to the next level. And then you're surrounded by sort of like a very like-minded individuals who are sort of all pushing forward for a greater purpose. And it is intoxicating to be around. The problem was, though, that I chucked myself into it, and then sort of going back to the chimp paradox, the first chapter is sort of like, what's your tombstone? And, for me, it was, always, be a good father and husband, give 110% at work, and don't be a dick. And that's sort of like my three sort of core mantras. And I was hitting what I thought was, I was putting 110% in work, but then I was failing massively 1 and 2, because whilst my wife was, doing her thing in the Navy, she ended up having child number 1. So it's sort of, and then I ended up missing a load. So I was on Salisbury Plain training area, so down south, in the heaving rain, when my wife sent me a video of our son taking his first steps, and you normalize it because you're surrounded by it. You're surrounded by other late 20s, early 30-year-old blokes who are like, yeah, I missed that too. It doesn't matter. Buy him something, buy him a big shiny present when you get home and everything will be okay. And I ended up swallowing, and diving into it a bit too hard. And then unfortunately it came to a head where my family needed me much more than I realized. And I would still, if anyone's watching this, please, or listening to this, please look at a military career. It's great fun, but I would sort of caveat and say, when family and young family come along, just really think about what you want to achieve. And I realized I wasn't there for my family. So when it came to a head, yes, the military were great in terms of giving me the time that I needed, but then it comes to a point where they're like, you need to come back. And unfortunately that was, this was now 5 years ago, when my second son, James, sadly passed away at a week old. And I will not insult the army at all, they were excellent in terms of giving me the time, the moral support, the mental support that I needed. I got some excellent counseling through the Army mental health services, just what I needed. But then I sort of, whether it was a poor coping mechanism, well, no, it was a poor coping mechanism, I sort of basically went, yeah, I'm fine. Sort of like 5-6 months later, threw myself back into work. At this point, this was back in 2020. So we're talking COVID had just hit. We were just about to deploy out to Mali, which was a very small operation at the time that sort of is now wrapped up. But I was proper. It was the first time our regiment was going out there, first UK force going out there, blah, blah, or sort of like certainly a big chunky extra UK force, and I was getting overexcited, thought this was my time to shine, etc., etc., and did that to the exclusion of my family, and then broke whilst I was out there, which was a horrible, horrible place to be. Ended up getting myself realizing that I was not well. Thankfully, my colonel at the time was very understanding and knew exactly what I'd been going through. And then basically I said, like, I just tapped out. I was like, I've got to go. And he was like, understood. That was then within a week, 2 weeks, I was back in the UK, and I was like, this is ridiculous, Dave. What the hell are you doing? Put in my papers for early release on sort of welfare grounds, so that was in the early part, that was in the January, was out of the military in the August, which you can do, but it's not usual. So if you speak to any military people, there's normally about a year run down or wind down so that you get it, but you can get it in exceptional circumstances to get it shorter. Thankfully, the practice that I'm now a partner at was advertising. And that was in the February, March. And I was sort of very blunt, open and honest. I said, I've been in a leadership position. Partnership is really the only logical place for me to sit. Yes, I will need training. Yes, I appreciate I don't know everything about the NHS, and I've been out of it for a while, but let's give it a go, see what we can do. And then, thankfully the partnership I'd landed into is phenomenal, like absolutely amazing practice to work with. And they've allowed me to be a bit crazy and flesh my ideas out. And yeah, fast forward 4 years, it's amazing. Like, I had 2 more kids, got 2 beautiful girls who keep me on my toes. Thankfully realized that, with all the stuff that I haven't missed, and then just those stupid moments that you don't realize that go, and often my wife will turn around to me and say, like, do you miss the army? When it's sort of like, it's a Sunday afternoon where I'd normally be in the car going down south or somewhere else, and I'd be like,
Yeah.
absolutely not. So yeah, put family first, fit in everything around it, and it's like, it's brilliant. So yeah, absolutely brilliant. Sorry, that's a long sort of
no, thank you
concise
so
bit.
much for sharing that, because this is critical. People, it's very easy to look at people who are, seemingly, you're doing amazing things out there, and you have now created this course. I have absolutely no doubt this is going to be a huge success. People are listening to this in all sorts of circumstances. I know that there are medics in, very much in NHS roles. There are people who don't really know what else they feel they could do. There are people that are feeling burnt out. There are people that are not spending the time with their children that they want to. And it's easy to look at people like you and I and think, oh, well, they've got it all sorted. They're fine. This was 4-5 years ago. And I'd like you to do me one thing, right? As a promise after this podcast. And I don't know whether I don't know whether you're somebody that journals or writes. I think you probably have done or will do, but this is one of the things I get everybody to do. And 5 years is a really good marker. Okay. And COVID is an excellent marker, because we all know what we were doing 5 years ago. And I think when you have had a success, like coming up with something, making it a thing, and 3 people buying it, this is a really important day today. So sit down today and write a diary about what's happened today, how you feel, the energy that you've put into something, everything that you feel around this whole build up and these 3 people buying this course for you. And then I want you to go back and write a bit of a diary about how you felt 5 years ago. You will remember how you felt 5 years ago. Emotionally, what was going on with your family, your wife, everything. It doesn't need to be long. And then I want you to look at what you want it to look like in 5 years' time. So the kids will be, 12, 9, and 7. What do you want your life to look like? What do you want your working day to look like? What else is going on around you? And write that in the first person as if you're living it. Because I think we don't reflect on how far we've come physically, emotionally, and from a learning point of view. And it then helps you shape where you want to go with this, because I know you've got big plans. Will you do that for me?
I will do that annoyingly with my brain. Sounds like a very good YouTube video as well to do.
Yes, there you go. You can on it. Whatever you do, you just capture.
Yeah.
You capture today and that story, because that story is always going to be front of mind for you. And that's never, losing a child like that is something nobody ever gets over. But we've talked about this slightly before, and you mentioned a couple of good things that have come out of it.
Yeah, and I think I think for me, because the whole process is, you can't fathom it. Like, and I still can't make heads nor tails of it. And you sort of then, you then sort of, I end up trying to create, thinking like, well, okay, well, it's down to me then to put some positive aspects around this, regardless of the tragic beginning of where this sort of process comes. So for me, like, so oddly, like, the relationship with my wife is probably the best it's ever been. And it really sort of like reset things. My relationship with work and how I sort of treat it has reset, and it's like, right, okay, who I am as a father is a lot better. So it's sort of like, okay, yeah, I can sort of see already that you think, yes, that horrendous thing has happened, but actually, right, can we get some positive out of it? And it's sort of, it's a bit sad in a way that you think, oh, I almost look at it as a bit like a train track of this. If this hadn't happened, I ended up on that path, I'd have probably stayed in, would have stuck with the two children. Will we have had any more, and that's, you think, oh, you sort of look at the other track and go, I'm not sure I would have been any happier. Would I have been a bit worse off actually down that way, in a horrible, horrible way? But, just trying to actually make something hugely positive out of a horrendous situation.
Amazing. Okay, so before we wrap up, let's think about business, because I know,
Yep.
it comes with all sorts of emotions and feelings. Like, what do you find difficult about running a business or being on your own kind of path? I love this patchwork GP.
Yeah. So I think actually the exciting bit, I'm going to sound like a giddy teenager. So it was sort of off the back of you. I think you had invited me onto one of your webinars, which is happening in May. Shameless plug. Come and
Yes.
listen to me. Yes,
9th
shameless plug. What is it? 9th of May.
9th
Yes.
May it is. Yeah.
9th of May.
Plug.
Yeah, shameless plug. Yeah, listen to me rant about YouTube for an hour. I'd had a old university friend of mine who I actually played rugby with, who was, interestingly, he had messaged me. He said like, "Oh, Dave, I run this small company called Doc Support. Could you just, could we have a chat? I think you'd be great for one of my webinars." Now, interestingly, so I used to play rugby with him. I was a prop, believe it or not, from, if you're looking at this video. He was the number 9. So we were friendly, but we were never like close. One of those sort of teammates, like, yeah, I would always help him out. We had a long chat on Zoom, like one night, just trying to prep for the webinar, delivered the webinar. And then a week later, he's like, "Dave, I really enjoyed our chat." And I was like, I was chatting away to my wife about him, and I was like, "Me too, actually." Like, I couldn't sleep after our chat. I was that sort of excited. He went like, "This is what I do." So he's so it's Matthew Wickham, Doc Sport. He's a GP, but doing some private work. He's an ENT surgeon, got so far, and then sort of went, "No, I'll go and do GP," and then does a lot of private work in Glasgow Ear Clinic. And then he's coaching other doctors to do getting into private practice. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. He's also got a property empire. So he's sort of like, yeah, I'll coach people in doing that as well. I was like, oh, that's interesting. He said, I haven't really got a handle on this social media stuff, and I've seen what you do. It's like, long and the short of it, do you fancy joining forces? And I went, absolutely. And I sort of mulled it over, and he said, like, we should work on Doc Sport together. And I just went like, okay. And then I slept, and then a sort of throwaway comment said, like, I should really roll GP templates into it, because I don't like the name. It doesn't make sense anymore. Whereas actually Doc Support makes much more sense. Slept on it. Well, I didn't sleep. I just got overexcited. And then the next day, just texting him, like, going, yeah, we need to do this. Like, yes, I'm all in. And basically emailed him back saying, right, how about we just completely combine forces and see what happens. I think on the background of this, and this is sort of goes back to the core values, that as sort of like as our chat, and I know we've had this chat, Joe, and said like, well, why are you doing this? Like, what is your why? And it was like, right, I earn enough money from my GP work for me and to run the family. But, I love my children in the school they're in, but the costs are going up for it. I would love to, my why is I would love to have a business that could fund that, ... That's your why. And he came out untriggered or unprompted by me with exactly that. He said, I've got 2 kids. I know school fees, etc., etc. I want a business that I can, I'm not trying to swindle the tax man. We'll sort of like, whatever it looks like, we'll earn double the amount, knowing that 50% is going to go to the tax man. But at the end, in, 4 or 5 years time, I want it to look like this, that all of the school fees are paid for. Okay, cool. And then the second bit, which was the deal clincher, which I don't think he realized, he said, I want a business meeting at Wimfell Centre Parks. And I was like, oh my word, you had me at Centre Parks. So it was just like, it was, and honestly, so, and we have just, and I think that sort of going back to your point about, if you're doing any of this alone, it's really, really soul destroying at times, that the only person is motivating you is you. And I'm just not that, I don't know, I haven't got that internal drive to keep me going to the same degree, unless it's for, so for example, the 20% was built around supporting my trainees. It was nothing to do with me. It was like, right, I'm going to get these videos out to help them for their exam. And now with Matthew on board, and we're sort of in the very early stages of GP templates being rolled into and amalgamated into this one bit. So for example, the course, I texted him first thing, was like, really sorry for a Sunday text, but I've sold one package. And he was like, that's amazing. And it was just like, so all that money is going to go into the new business and then see what happens from that way. So it's all, sorry, it's all very exciting.
Well, so that the loneliness is about, the loneliness
absolutely.
And I totally relate to that. But finding like-minded people and building those collaborations and you know, that communication with people, like you say, it wasn't your best friend in the whole world, but you've got this, you know, you've got this know, like, and trust factor. Like, you know that you're not going to mess each other around, and you can you know, you probably fill each other's gaps, I would imagine, in your skill sets.
Yeah. So in the so already, like we've been texting earlier this morning, so you know, finances wise, I haven't got a clue. Like, you know, give me a, so for example, it's weird. So this module wise, like the actual creating the course, blitzed it. Like I had Monday, so a week ago, I filmed 14 videos back to back, like absolutely insanity. I edited throughout the week, had some really early starts, but got it done. Knew I could do that. Knew that was very much, this is Dave, this is my thing to do. Having a chat to him one evening, and he said, like, right, okay, so what do you think about financial wise? And I was like, and he said, right, well, we need to register with the company, get a private account set up. We've got 18 months to get the accountant to get the first things off to make sure HMRC happy. And I was like, that sounds nice. I haven't got a clue. And he was like, right, shall I run with this? I'm like, absolutely. So, and then even I'm going to strong arm you this, because we're even flirting with an idea of a podcast, which I want a certain Dr. Joe Watkins on for one of our episodes. And even that, we were like, even just the chatting was like, I think I can take the lead on this. So we can work on this. So yeah, absolutely.
Fabulous. Amazing.
So yeah, exciting times,
one of my longest episodes, and we were going to do a swapsies, but I think we do that as a second thing.
Yeah, so absolutely. We'll set a different time. We'll get that done. Sorry.
So what I want is, before we leave, 3 pieces of advice to your early entrepreneurial self. So not necessarily, you know, even a couple of years ago, what would be your 3 pieces of advice?
Oh my word. So I'm gonna flick it to YouTube, because I think sort of that's where my biggest lessons are, is consistency is a superpower. So the biggest growth that I've had this year is because I've been consistent. That would be sort of my first sort of big trigger. Second point would certainly, from, if you're looking at YouTube as a business, my sort of key nugget is that you are not going to make money from YouTube, i.e. the YouTube partnership program paying you money for adverts on your video is going to make you, it's very hard to get into, just due to the sheer what you have to achieve. I'm over 100 videos in, I'm nowhere near achieving it. You're not going to get any finances from that way. So think where your money's going to come from. Okay, so for example, for me, it's the course, but think about other products that you can create, monetize, and do that early. I am far too late to that game, and I wish I'd done it a couple of years back, but you know, I can forgive myself, but it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. So as I've got a beautiful trainee who comes out with some fantastic, she's from Gambia originally, so she gets some fantastic phrasing. And the one that she said to me when we talk about this is, the morning is whenever you wake up. And I was just like, oh, that's amazing. I'll take that. So thank you from that way. And I think the third bit is that, you know, if you're an avid listener, however you interact with Joe, I'm going to make this directly at you, is act. Just act. You hear some bits of information and act. So off the back of the webinar, so the January one where I was scribbling, taking notes, I was just like, I had one that said, like, you've got to have a product, like have something that you can give them physically as well. So I'm as if by magic, because my pre-meeting was about video content creation, I made a book, a short book.
Love it.
Examination counts to 5K. Now, before I met up with Matthew, I said, like, yeah, give it away for free. And we've got a virtual assistant who is phenomenal, Kaylee, who sort of like who's sort of coaching us both in terms of how to grow this. And she's like, I had a one-to-one chat with her before we were going to amalgamate. And at the end of it, she said like, yeah, you should have monetized that. I was like, oh, damn it. And then I got it printed out. So deliberately got it printed out, and apologies, I've got a picture of.
Oh,
there you go. So I've got right at the back. It's who to follow. So it's sort of like, and I was like, I couldn't have got here without you. So Jo Watkins has got her own little page there. So a little bio.
Let's have a little.
There we go.
Live.
There we go. Can I can.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, there we go. Anyway,
a lot of people say you should just hand your book out, and a book's a bit like YouTube, very difficult to make money out of a book, and you should just get as many free copies out as possible. Yep. So there is another school of thought around books.
Absolutely, and so I took that school of thought. So I've got a discussion at again, sort of like the YouTube creates opportunities, not money. It's down to you to turn them into money. So I was like, right, I've got this book, delivering a talk at a ICB level, so on sort of video content creation in the digital age, basically trying to promote primary care, pushing out videos. And we've had some certain successes with our Eaglescliffe Medical Practice channel, so we've had a huge increase in referral rate to the NHS diabetes prevention program through a targeted text campaign saying, watch this video, respond if you want to sign up to it, and our referral rates have shot through the roof. And I'm delivering that talk along with, I've got a bucket load of these books to hand out to be like, look, if you want to have, because I think it should be probably an ICB level, having like an editorial hub that us as GPs can feed in these videos. They can tweak it, make it personalized and feed it back out, because I don't have time. But you know what? I've got the skills that I could train up someone else to do it and take that workload off me.
So we've got to be consistent in whatever you do.
Yep, be consistent. Sorry.
Try and monetize.
Yep.
If you're getting out there, if you're doing a YouTube channel, I had a conversation with somebody before we pressed record about doing a podcast. It's the same thing. What is the end result? Like, I love having a podcast because people send me an email and say, can you tell me a little bit about this? And I say, yeah, here's a little bit about this, but you need to listen to episode 12, 6 and 4 and then send me another email, because there's information in there that I can use to instead of having endless discovery calls and repeating myself. And then if somebody's listened to that and is ready, they can then take the next step to the monetized course or one-to-one work. So you've got to know where people are going if they come to YouTube.
Absolutely. And I think that sort of, to bring on that point, even I've done that with you, Joe, where you said like, Dave, how do I get my Google reviews up? And I was like, I've done a video on that. And so if you're thinking about what content to create, your repeated questions, that's all I do. On my Facebook channels, I'm on a GP Partner one, I'm on a SystmOne one, and I just will take a mental note of, that question's come up before, I'll do a video on that, I'll do a video on that, I'll do a video on that. And then you build that.
Yeah.
So when that question comes up again, you're like, bang, link, watch my video. So yeah.
Exactly. And your third one was take action. And I love those. They are brilliant. This has been awesome. I have absolutely loved it. I know this won't be the last time we do this.
Nope.
So thank you so much for coming. We're going to link everything in the show notes. We're going to get this out. And I think Dr. Lovely would be sitting here so proud of what you've done. And you have turned around a very, very awful situation. And I think you maybe would never have done these things otherwise. And so that is an amazing story. So thank you so much for your time, Dave. And I'll speak to you soon.
Not at all, Joe. Thanks for having me.
I hope this episode has sparked some new ideas or challenged your thinking. Transitioning from medicine to business is not easy. It's about adapting our skills while embracing the unknowns of entrepreneurship. It can be nerve-wracking, but remember, you are not alone on this journey. please feel free to reach out to me via direct message on LinkedIn or Instagram, or just shoot me an email at joe@bendylegs.com for support. And don't forget to grab the free PDF from the show notes, From Stethoscope to Startup, which is your go-to guide and resource for diving into entrepreneurship. Many thanks for tuning in. I will see you next time. Thanks for spending your precious time with me.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.